The Stepley Silk Mill was built in 1897 by the Stepley Silk Corporation. The company from Opfelden, Switzerland chose to build their factory in Lancaster, PI because of its close proximity to New York City and Philadelphia. The sprawling brick, three-story factory building near Grandview Heights is as long as an aircraft carrier, with 1,000 windows. At its peak, more than 2,100 people were employed by Stepley Silk Corporation. The employees of this factory helped create the neighborhood surrounding the mill, known as Rossmere. Housing was built for select workers in Lancaster City. If you lived in Lancaster, you either worked in the plant, the factory, or a mill. The factory was Hamilton Watch Factory. The mill was Stepley's Silk Mill. The plant was Armstrong Linoleum Plant. Those were the three places you could work, otherwise you were selling something in the stores, running a gas station, or a lawyer and that sort of thing. But if someone said you worked at a mill, you knew it was Stepley's. This area is known for its rich industrial heritage, having once been home to such notable enterprises as the Lancaster Stockyards, the Stepley Silk Mill and Armstrong Cork Company. Streetcars ran throughout the area and train tracks were the thread that bound the area together. As suburban development evolved along the edges and industrial enterprises began to fade away, the complexity of the area increased, resulting in a region with no true identity or sense of place. A developer wants to convert the 107-year-old former Stepley and Company Silk Mill into apartments, shops and a restaurant. The $20 to $30 million project, if approved, would transform one of the largest underused industrial properties in Lancaster into a vibrant centerpiece for nearby residents. Several buildings sprawling over a 28-acre lot, vacant since 1989. The resort opened as Conestoga Motor Inn and has also operated as Sheraton Conestoga Resort Inn, Shawnee Lancaster, and Lancaster Farms Resort. The complex dates to 1950 when Carly Pyle built the 20-room Conestoga Motor Inn. Later, the resort operated as a Sheraton, but lost that affiliation in 1984 and was rechristened Shawnee Lancaster Resort in 1986. After it closed in 1989, the property changed hands several times, with failed proposals to turn it into a Christian conference center, a supermarket or a sanitarium, now completely razed to the ground and gone forever. Burger's Distillery, later known as Michter's Distillery, may at the time of its closing have been the oldest distillery in the United States. The complex represents the transformation of whiskey distilling from an agricultural enterprise into a large-scale industry. The still house, warehouse and jug house date from about 1840, but its roots go back to 1753 when John and Michael Schenck, Swiss Mennonite farmers, began distilling rye whiskey at the site. Sometime before 1860, Abraham Burger, a Pennsylvania Dutchman, purchased the distillery from the Schenck family. The distillery closed in 1919, but with the lifting of Prohibition, Punco distillers acquired the property and made whiskey until 1978, when the distillery was sold to Michter's. The distillery closed on February 14, 1990 after Michter's filed for bankruptcy. At the time of its closing, it was the oldest original site distillery in the U.S. Burger's was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1975, and was declared a National Historic Landmark in 1980. Today the distillery is severely deteriorated from lack of maintenance. Currently the property is owned by a woodworker, who would like to see the distillery restored. Recently, bourbon whiskey made prior to the distillery's closing has been bottled under the A.H. Hirsch label. Since 2004, bourbon and rye whiskey produced in Bardstown, Kentucky by Kentucky Bourbon Distillers has been sold under the Michter's label, currently owned by Chatham Imports, Inc.